Good evening, everybody. It's Pat Conway. I'm Mike Lowry. We're here to give you an update about the status of the Lake Scituate Watershed. As you are all well aware, there are three bodies of water that we're talking about, and you'll hear us talk about Fisk Pond as well, because that's really part of the system. And we get some of our weeds from there, so that's why it's important to us. About 18 square miles, 3.75 miles long, 69 feet deep. All three of these water bodies are on a state list that they send to the EPA as the most impaired water bodies. We're home to two Natick water supply wells, one there and one there about. A couple of beaches, Wayland, Framingham, and a great big state park. So we all have a lot at stake. This is what we're going to do tonight. We're going to have Pat tell you just a little bit about who the Watershed Council is, what it does, and I'll talk to you about the status of the lake this year and what plans there are afoot for next year, and a little bit about stormwater and nutrients. We'll spend some time in discussion, however long it takes, and wrap it up. So we're going to try to be out of here by 8 o'clock.
Thank you, Mike. What I'd like to do is just kind of explain that the Lake Scituate Watershed Council was formed a couple of years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. And it came out of some other groups, one of which was Power, Protect Our Water Resources, which was headed up by Carol, who's here in the building, but not here right now. And Carol Berkowitz, and some other folks who were passionate about the lake and the water quality, drinking water. And then we decided to kind of morph into a watershed association or council to emphasize and concentrate on the whole watershed itself, not just the water part of it, but all the other things that shed into it. So the shed part of this is pretty important. And we've been lucky, we've been able to recruit people like Mike, who know a lot about the lake already, who serves on the Wayland Surface Water Quality Committee and Wayland Department of Public Works, of which he's now the chairman, and many other hats he wears. But what we've done is we've cobbled together kind of a coalition to work on these things, advocate with all the complex governmental organizations and grassroots groups that are invested in the lake, or called the, what do you call them, the shareholders, you know? And then we are attempting to work with the DCR and all these groups to especially help or do something about the weeds. The weeds are tough. And the weeds, however, are being fed by everything that's running into the lake, which is another huge issue. So the weeds and the stormwater are probably our two major focuses. And then, in addition to that, I kind of run this wild, broad spectrum environmental movement called Big Heart Little Feet. And that's part of LCWC too. So we cobble together all kinds of, I call them gateway experiences for people to get involved. I call it, let's heal the land, let's heal the water. So we work a lot on trails, woodlands, land invasive species, terrestrial invasives, trying to save good trees, trying to save really pretty and beautiful areas here in Natick and the watershed. We also have a focus on something very concrete and simple: trash and recycling. And it's just more of a symbol than anything else, because what's running into the lake is really harming the lake. You can't see it. It's the stuff you can't see. But we also attempt to mobilize students, church groups, youth groups, and everything to get in there and let's get our hands dirty, and we'll pull out all the styrofoam cups and all the junk that's going into the lake and all this stuff. And the trash is kind of a symbol. And in Natick, my newest project is we're gonna make Natick trash-free in 2014. First community in the whole Commonwealth of Massachusetts ever to be trash-free. So that's a really ambitious goal, of course, and we've got a few people who are kind of working with me on it. But these are our major areas, and you know, we could use more people. We're trying to build our council and our group so that we can include more members, and that's where we're a little short right now. We've got too much to do and too few people to do it. So that's one thing that we'll talk about a little bit more tonight, and we'd like for you to, you know, this is just the overview of who the players are here, and we do have, I want to thank all of you for coming. We have some really good people here who've been working for years on the lake. The DCR owns the lake. The regulators are Natick, Frame, and Wayland Conservation Commissions. Our advocacy groups are LCWC, Power, which I mentioned. LCWC kind of morphed into it. And we have CSPAC here too. It's a Constituent State Park Advisory Council. And Sandra is here tonight. She's the president, or the chair. So we're grateful to have Sandra join us. And Chris Mayata is also a member of the CSPAC as well as the Friends of Lake Constituent. So, the state park, right? So Chris Mayata, thank you for coming. And we have another good friend here, Irene Kessel. She's a member of the Natick Town Forest Committee, and she helps sometimes as one of my trail buddies. We have other members of the council here. This is Jill McLaughlin. She's a member of LCWC, and she's here tonight. Scott Knowlton back there with the Red Sox cap on. He's a member of our LCWC council. And forgive me,
Jack Kelly.
Jack Kelly, okay. Nice to see you here. Wynn Caller is also a member of the LCWC council. Wynn lives in Wayland. Doug Milch is a new member of our council, and he's a Earth Club advisor at Natick High School. And
I am Catherine Bentime. I live on Arcadia Road, so I'm an abutter to the lake.
oh, wonderful. Nice to have you here, Catherine. And of course you met Mike. And excuse me, Matt is Sandra's husband, Matt Brennan.
Also a big lake user.
Yeah. A stakeholder. So any of you folks who are butters, the whole purpose of this meeting is really try to fire people up and see if we can get a few more people to help us.
One of the things that's happened over the last, hello Bradfords. I think Wayland's gonna predominate here on your Natick people. You know, we're up here in this little part, you guys are down here in this big part. Let's get serious. Let's get some more Natick people in here. This is Lynn Bradford, who serves on the Wayland Surface Water Quality Committee with me, and his wife Jo, who makes the best damn cookies in this world.
And Constituent State Park Advisor.
Yes.
And both of them are on, yeah.
So, a lot has happened over the last 5 years, but I think one of the things we've all come to realize is that unless we all work together, we all fail separately. And that spirit and an attempt to compromise and find consensus has really come a long way. We're really sharing, I think, an approach and responsibilities now. We're trying to create a comprehensive lake management plan that everybody can subscribe to. A plan that considers nutrient reduction, because the plants don't grow unless we feed them, and boy, we're feeding them. An approach that would use spot herbicide with follow-up hand pulling and protecting our water supplies at the same time. And trying to find increased funding sources to regain control of invasives and work on nutrient reduction. So all of those things are part of a comprehensive plan. We've had some success stories in 2013. We are enjoying and continue to enjoy the continuity of Tom Flannery and Steve Asen and DCR's Lakes and Ponds group. They own the lake, they help us look after the lake. Another success this year is there is a new law that makes it illegal to transport an invasive species into a lake. This is now enforceable. It didn't used to be enforceable. If you're a boat monitor in a lake, you had to smile and say, please do this, and now you can say, do this, it'll cost you $500. So there's some teeth in this law now, and I think this maybe came about after the zebra mussel thing, but it's there. In North Pond, we've had milfoil well under control for 4 years. We use hand pulling and we use herbicide as well as a physical control. So there's a big barrier at the entrance to North Pond. You all know the water starts at the bottom and flows north. Seems counterintuitive, but when it comes into North Pond, we catch fragments of milfoil as they come in. Over the last 4 years, the amount of stuff we've caught in that barrier has gone from enormous to damn little. So that's progress. In Middle Pond, there was a recent 5-acre spot treatment, and using a technology called DASH, it's like equipping divers with suction harvesting so they can stay down there and not quite sweep the bottom like a vacuum cleaner, but grab stuff and put it into the tube and work fast and clear out a big area. The channel that we've created between the DCR boat launch and North Pond has gotten wider every year. And we think that's one of the reasons that we see many fewer fragments coming into North Pond than we had before. The Watershed Council put benthic mats in an area of Middle Pond in 2012 that had a lot of boat traffic on it. And it's kind of a big area to cover with benthic mats. But we did it anyway. And lo and behold, even this year, there wasn't any milfoil in that area. So that was a real plus. Many fewer fragments because the boats went right across this because it was pretty much in the middle of the lake, or close to the middle of the lake. So we cut down a lot of fragmentation with those mats, and they still helped us. We were going to put them in this year again, and we decided it would be a waste of time because there wasn't any milfoil there to suppress. Good news. Our abutter program is still going. This is a program where an abutter around the lake can pay money and to have us put down benthic mats or do hand pulling or both. Big Heart Little Feet ran, I think Pat told me, 60 cleanups, not all of them on the water's edge, but just huge amount of junk that has been taken out of our lake. Couple of things very special that happened positively this year. With the help of Bob Boyce, Carol organized a visit with Natick and the Natick Selectman, the Natick Conservation Administrator, and people from the Watershed Council, and Representative Linsky. And in his office, he got the DCR Commissioner and some of the underlings in there, and we all had a good time. And we talked to them about how important the lake was. We talked to them about having a management plan that covered all these different aspects of the lake. And we talked to them about stormwater control. Well, Commissioner Murray knew some people at Mass DOT, and this last week, Bob Boyce, who's the Native Conservation Administrator, got a letter from Mass DOT saying they're going to start a program to look at all of their stormwater that's flowing into Lake Ichituit from all of their roads. Yeah, Carol? Oh, okay. This is huge. Getting the state to do anything is miraculous. Did we do it? Well, we'd like to think so, but who knows? They may be ready to do it anyway because they have to submit to the EPA a permit for the area that they're responsible for, just like towns do for stormwater. So this is something they're going to have to do anyway, but we'd like to feel we moved them along a little bit. And that was great. Also, Wayland did this was actually 2002, I'm sorry. We did a $50,000 set of stormwater improvements at our town beach. Our town beach was like a big bowl, and stormwater was coming down all the streets and shooting right into the lake through a big pipe. The lake was like the toilet for that bowl. Rain came, washed it all into the lake. That, by the way, is the way most of the outfalls work in Lake Cochituate. They're the plumbing that gets the water and the pollutants and everything else that's on the road off the street and into the lake. That's what they do. So we had some good luck this year, and I think things have actually improved. Things were pretty good in Middle Pond this year for the first time in a long time. We can't take all the credit for that. We think that the weather helped. The water was higher, the water was moving faster, the water was a little cloudier, and maybe that helped keep the milfoil down. But better is better, we'll take it where we find it. So things are improving. This pond by pond, North Pond, good control, I think the 5th year in a row. Middle Pond, improving, 5 acres were treated. The flow in the lake and the water has helped suppress the weeds. Our benthic matting still helped. The South Pond was still in tough shape. That's where most of the nutrients come into South Pond, and there's still fragmentation caused by recreational uses. Down in Fisk Pond, the DCR did a major water chestnut removal, only to have other plants come in and right behind it and cover the top. The lesson here is that if you give them a food bowl, they will come, and they did. Once again, all of these ponds are on the list that the state sends to the EPA, a so-called 303D list, that lists them all as being most impaired. And this is the document that is sent to the EPA by all states. Category 5 is the most impaired. Category 5 are waters that require something called a TMDL. TMDL is a diet. It's a phosphorus diet. It's how much is coming in, how much can the lake afford to take on, and a plan to reduce it. Has anyone done the TMDLs for these 4 lakes? No. They do them on a rotating basis, but one of the things that we can do is try to advocate for getting those TMDLs done so that we'll have the comprehensive plan that the lakes need. I think it's in our interest to have those total maximum daily load is what the acronym stands for. How much nutrients can you afford to put in? So one of the things that we found was helpful when we talked to the state is this document that was done back in 2004, almost 10 years ago. The Metropolitan Area Planning Council did a very comprehensive report about pollution sources coming into all ponds in the lake. The sections of this report are still online, and you can read them. Until recently, the maps were not online. We have just obtained the maps, and they will be posted somewhere where we can all get at them. And I'll show you a sample of those maps in a little bit. What's going on in 2014? The DCR is organizing to do spot treatments using diquat and, in some places, diquat with copper in a treatment program that will let abutters opt out if they don't want this used in front of their property. I think the DCR is going to kind of extraordinary lengths to try to convince everyone that this herbicide can be used in this way. We want them to use herbicide as a last resort and not a first resort. But the reason they're planning on using these 2 different formulations is that this one is very good for milfoil and can be used in very low concentrations on milfoil. Where there are other nuisance species like potamogetans, they take something with a little more oomph, and this is kind of like vitamins for diquat. The combination helps suppress potamogetans, and so that will be used in the places that they survey, which they'll survey in the spring, where they find large quantities of other invasives. As I said before, we have the Mass DOT doing their MS4 study. MS4 is their jargon for municipal sewer system something or other, but it's basically a stormwater runoff study. And they will be studying nutrient flows and other pollutant flows from the roads discharging into the lake. This is a wonderful thing to have started. The Watershed Council will continue with the abutter program and benthic matting and hand pulling. And in 2014, Wayland is going to be making some major stormwater improvements at the intersection of 27 and 30 in Constituent Center. The drainage there leads today right into Snake Brook and North Pond, and there's going to be some considerable abatement of that. And Wayland's already had discussions with its own Conservation Commission about how to do it, you know, where to spend the money and where to put the effort. So, good news and on that front too, I think. There's still some other things that we would like to do and we want to get busy on. The 2004 MAPC study clearly identified the Beaver Dam Brook area as one of the major sources of nutrient flows into the lake. We mentioned this when we talked to the DCR commissioner, and we're going to need to keep beating the drum. There's also the filter dam, which I think Pat can describe better than I can, that is no longer fulfilling its purpose. Where was that? Where's the filter dam, Pat?
Well, the filter dam is actually what people think about as the little fishing bridge at the bend in the road at Route 135, not too, almost opposite the VFW. It's just a little ways down from Roche Brothers Plaza, not all the way to Natick Center, but that's it. And people think it's a de facto fishing bridge, which it is, but it's not a fishing bridge, it's a filter dam that was.
Matt, could you hold that thing up so that Pat can point it out? No, behind you, the thing
Oh, that
that's
one?
peeled down.
Yeah, the filter dam is right here where Fisk Pond empties into South Pond. And Fisk Pond is actually, you know, it's pretty mucky and it's a de facto settling pond. These two little ponds over by Roach Brothers are official settling ponds for Beaver Dam Brook. They were supposed to help prevent flows of nutrients and so forth. But this filter dam was once built 20 or 30 years ago with, had
Marble chips,
yeah, marble chips and stuff in it that would, you know,
cup phosphorus.
Yeah.
they thought.
and it would have worked, except it was never maintained. So it just fell into disuse and so it's no longer really functioning. But that's one of the things that DCR may actually attend to, and that could be a good project to improve that and bring it back to online. Because anything we can do to prevent, Mike mentioned Beaver Dam Brook, the other one is Coarse Brook, both of which bring in 60% of the nutrient load to Lake Constituent. Just those two sub-watersheds. And the reason is because it's the whole area is such a high degree of impervious cover, which means pavement, rooftops, parking lot, roadways. And this is where we're getting killed, basically. You know, the Snake Brook too, but these two are big culprits.
Well, you can see also that this whole area is drained, is part of the watershed that drains in to through those points.
Yeah, if
So-
you don't have one of these, you can follow along with one of these little.
We're gonna highly recommend that everyone take one of these home and read it. This was, I think, one of the best little brochure summaries, and it's pointed right at Lake Constituent. This is the output of the MAPC study. And it's terrific. It tells at a high level and also at a very personal level things that we can all do and work for. We've got some other opportunities. There has been some emails back and forth between the town of Natick and DCR about a boat washing station. Whether or not, that looks like about a $7,000 a year cost. Whether or not that's worth it to $7,000 or not, or whether it cannot be done any cheaper, but at least we're talking about it. The other thing that I think that this lake lacks is water chemistry monitoring. How do you know how healthy your lake is if you don't measure it? We measure it in little old Dudley Pond, little 86-acre Dudley Pond. This is a 600-acre area. Somebody ought to be looking at how much phosphorus there is, how much dissolved oxygen there is, the parameters that are usually used to judge the health of the lake. So this is something that we'd like to see get started. We'll be continuing the partnership. The DCR is providing the kind of leadership and planning and advocacy and funding and stewardship. The towns provide control of the water that dumps in, as does the state, I should say. Local coordination, stewardship and funding, and organizations like ours and Constituent State Park Advisory Committee and Friends of the Park provide funding and advocacy and partnering and volunteer work, fire support and stewardship. So that will continue. We could pause here, but I think this might be part of, let me dispose of this one last topic before we pause, and then we'll do the question and answers. Sometimes when a problem is right in front of you, you get so focused on that problem that if you get rid of the problem, you think you've solved the problem. The problem in these lakes is not that plants grow. That's a symptom. The problem is that we're pouring plant food into them. And that's one of the things that needs to get fixed over the next 10 or 15 years if we want to give healthy lakes to our children. The stormwater drains around this lake are pretty much a network to conduct pollution and nutrients into the lakes. That's what they do. That's what they were designed to do. Get the water off the roads. What do? Well, let it go down, put it in the lake, you know? A little of this won't hurt anything. So that's what those are doing. It is possible to break that direct connection from roads to lakes. The new best practices, if you were putting in one of these today, would be to try to infiltrate as much of the water as you can and stop the pollutants and nutrients before they reach the lake. That's what Wayland did at the Wayland Town Beach. That's what Wayland is going to do at 27 and 30. No one of these things solves the whole problem, but they all make a contribution. So, you know, we can win this fight if we win it one storm drain at a time. So if we knock off a few of these every year, after a while, we'll get to have a much cleaner lake. We can use these new regulations that EPA is putting on all the states for stormwater, especially well because the lakes that we're concerned about are listed on this 303D list. That pretty much makes it mandatory for towns to do the planning and the kind of big plan that we want them to do. It's phosphorus and nitrogen that feed these weeds. It comes in from lawn fertilizer and other stormwater runoff, septic systems leach through porous soils, decaying leaves, and even gunk that's at the bottom and gets stirred up again. Can put nutrients back into the lake. We'd like to see improvements in septic system maintenance where there are septic systems that border the lake, and improvements in stormwater and runoff handling. And as I mentioned before, the DCR is the example of Fisk Pond, where you take out one plant and other ones grow right back. It's just like cutting off the snake's head and having two more snake heads come up. We got to starve the snake. Some good news. Some really good news. Go to Home Depot and look for that old fertilizer you used to buy. It ain't there anymore. The phosphorus left our laundry detergents a couple of years ago, and it's left our lawn fertilizer now too. Not to say that you should, you know, that lets everybody go out and do whatever they want with lawn fertilizer. There are some exceptions for new lawns or when a soil test indicates that you really need phosphorus in your lawn. But the rules are that between this period of time, there isn't any fertilizer use within 20 feet of a water body without some sort of vegetative buffer. And the towns can have stricter controls if they want to. Why did the towns do that? Why did all of a sudden the towns get religion? The towns got religion because the EPA leaned on them to clean up their act, and it's a lot easier, they figured, to take the phosphorus out where it comes in than after it gets in the water. So it's a matter of economies for the town, but thank the Lord for the feds. These other states already have adopted the limits. But that's good news indeed. We think of Dudley Pond, because we measure the water chemistry and we think that we see an improvement. Not a huge improvement, but somewhat of an improvement in the phosphorus levels in Dudley Pond. Okay, it's 2003 and we know where the outfalls are. In that MAPC report, they mapped all these outfalls. They did it for us. Here's a couple examples. Here's North Pond. Every one of those purple dots is a pipe coming off a road leading to the lake. Now, this one may take care of this area, and this one may take care of this area. Each one of these is like it's got its own little watershed. And it's got its own little bunch of catch basins that it feeds. And they end up in these pipes that come into the lake. These maps show some other things too. They show the locations of underground storage tanks and some other kinds of risks. But there's a map like this for all of the subwatersheds in the lake. This report also identified some other priority mitigations and it ranked them. So, we have some tools, so we know where to start looking. We have some tools to put in Mass DOT's hands to help them find where their water goes. So, we'll get them started. We wanted to set aside at least 15 minutes to just talk, answer anybody's questions, anything that's going on in the lake, anything we think we should be worried about. So we put up a way to collect these, but given the amount of time, maybe we could just answer anybody's question or talk what anybody wants to talk about.
Take a few notes up here.
Well, Pat, why don't you moderate, and I'll just write things down.
Okay, okay, good. So, yes, Sandy.
Okay, so I have a question, but first I wanted to just say thank you to you guys. I know one of the things I've seen happen since the, like 2008, 2009, people coming together and really trust growing. And I think that's been what's made this forward progress happen. And that's on the, all fronts. And for Constituent State Park Advisory Committee, I think what we can do, doesn't have to be here, is to make sure that our agenda reflects the things that we can do, like advocating for the testing under the 303D list and all that, testing for next year and things for other things. The other thing I was just wondering about is I was thinking about Wayland, and anyone who hasn't gone over to the Wayland Town Beach should probably just take a drive into that parking lot, because you can see the system. You can see a little bit of it, some of it's underground, but you can see some of what was put in to take all that water in. But
There's a huge thing underground that is maybe a round structure that goes out to that wall in the middle of the tables, and it's about at least as tall as this building.
Yeah, so
It's called the hydrodynamic separator, and before the hydrodynamic separator, there's a whole bunch of rocks, riprap. And the idea is when that water rips down and goes over the riprap, it slows down and it drops its load of stuff.
Right, and so I was wondering, the question is about Natick and Framingham. I know Wayland is now going forward with the stuff that's gonna happen at 27 and 30, so we're chipping away at these requirements. How is it looking as far as Framingham and Natick? Do we see some wheels going in the towns? I know Wayland, you had brought forth the thing that we voted on to give 30,000 town money towards what happened at Wayland Town Beach. I don't know, are there things on the docket? Are there things coming up in Framingham and Natick where they're starting to maybe bite off some of these spots?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I can tell you that the MAPC has got a sort of priority punch list of the things that ought to be done in these various towns. And Wayland's hit both of its. So as you can expect, because of the size of the lake and the size of the amount of frontage that Wayland has, we don't have too many to worry about. Framingham doesn't have too many to worry about. Natick has got a lot to worry about. But it might be good to have someone continue to remind Natick of what should be a priority on that list.
Natick is slowly getting up to speed on this, and the town administrator and Bob Boyce and I and another person, a guy who teaches at Wellesley, a professor at Wellesley, have started to, there's going to be the formation of a sustainability committee, and it's going to try to focus on stormwater issues as well as energy efficiency and a few other basic ideas. So I believe that they're moving, but it's slow. We don't have in Natick a surface water quality committee. You know, we don't have that. We just have our Concom, and we have LCWC. You know, so
But it's important, you know, that the management of invasive weeds, milfoil, whatnot, that reducing the influx of the nutrients is important. Milfoil still will win, even if you have milfoil out in the middle of nature and the backwoods of Canada. If it's in there, it will beat out the natural plants. It's just that the slowing of it doing that allows for lower cost in trying to manage it. And if you look at just the management of North Pond, which again, these guys deserve a ton of credit, along with DCR, is that's been managed since 2009 without an herbicide treatment until this year, some spot treatment. So the thing is that it can be managed each year with, like you said, herbicides as last resort, handling it with hand pulling over the years, monitoring it over the years. And once we get that for all the towns, I think the costs will level off, go down and level off the way they have in North Pond.
I agree.
yeah, we're hoping to recruit more volunteers, not just to clean up, you know, stuff that's in the lake, trash and so forth, but we would like to, Charles River Watershed Association is an amazing organization, and they have a whole cadre of volunteers who take samples, and, you know, they run it back to the watershed, and then they send it off, and they get it. It's a regularly addressed thing. So that's what we aspire to. We aspire to getting that organized. Yes, Bob?
Just to prime the pump on questions, I wonder, you know, as far as handling stormwater runoff, what would the approach be? Or I can think of two approaches. One is to try to direct it away from the lake entirely, or another is to feed it into an area like a settling pond or an area where it could slowly filter down to the ground and then filter out most of that matter. So is there any particular approach used for, or, you know, a feasible approach for handling stormwater?
There's a whole sort of program of different kinds of different approaches for physical handling of stormwater. And the world has really changed. You know, if you do it right in the first place, you don't need a great big $50,000 hydrodynamic separator. You know, you can get by slowing the water down, letting it infiltrate into the ground. There are situations where you can intervene to drop phosphorus out. If you've got a lot of phosphorus coming into a place, in Wellesley, for example, they do alum treatments where the water comes in, and they get it and lock it up before it gets into Morse's Pond. So there are some other chemical means of inactivating phosphorus, but those work if you don't stir up the sediments. You know, if you inactivate the top 1/8 of an inch of sediments and then you stir them all up again, you wasted your money. So, Carol?
Yeah, so I don't know if you know about this park, the John J. Lake Park, which is on Speen Street. So if you ride down Speen, you're gonna see the development. I happen to live near there and walk through the woods, and I do know there's a consciousness because there was a very large eroded area from the previous way the park was organized. And it drove, you know, without heavy rains, it drove a huge ditch, and most of that water all flowed into Lake Cochituate. So the other day I was walking there, And what you just mentioned, Mike, there's now a whole stone area, maybe it's 50 feet from where the down part, in the back, where the hill comes down. And it's in that eroded area, they filled it with big, stones, well, big, I don't know, this big, okay? And so there is a consciousness of working towards that idea, just how much everywhere, where it's done. And I know that next door is the National Guard, and I know they did not even come for a permit. They're supposed to come to do a watershed permit with that particular construction area, and they never drew a permit.
Yeah, these riprap aprons and buffers that Mike and Carol talked about are very important, and they've started to install as much more of a best management practice, they call it, a beat, and they're doing it all over the place. And Charles River is one of the areas where there's been a lot of really innovative stormwater implementations, that we call them. And the town of Newton has done a lot, and they've been able to develop a stormwater utility in the town. Newton's a big city, 90,000 people, and somehow they got it passed. So everybody in Newton pays us a little tax called a stormwater utility. If you have a driveway in a private home, you pay, $20. But if you have a business in a pretty
Unless you
good
have
size.
Sanders driveway, in which case you don't pay anything.
Zero. Right. Porous pavement is.
Yeah, if you have a parking lot and, you have other hard surfaces, then you pay accordingly along this formula. And it has enabled Newton to really get the resources to go in and do some pretty amazing things. Like over at the Chestnut Hill Mall, you might have seen that they dug up a huge area of that big parking lot over at the Chestnut Hill Mall. They put in all kinds of sand, filtering beds and all kinds of stuff, so all the water that ran off that parking lot and Route 9 and everything else gets pretty nicely treated before it goes into the waterways.
It's nice, what you can do with physical treatment. You don't have to have chemistry. Lynn?
One of the things that I observed from being around here is, we've got a stormwater drainage system around the lake. It's there. The trouble is that a large percentage of it doesn't work. There may be 7 catch basins connected into this one outflow, and only one catch basin catches the water. The other 6 get no water through them because the water goes in a gutter, it needs a curbing, it's too high because the road was rebuilt, something's wrong, and no one has put a chance to get them to work. You get the water into a catch basin, some drops out, goes into another catch basin, some more drops out. This system that's there intact, from what I can see, would actually work pretty good, but it's gotta work. If you've got a catch basin near your house, when's the last time you cleaned the leaves off the top of it to make sure it didn't plug? When's the last time you complained because the gutter is going by the catch basin instead of putting the water into it? Okay, just an observation.
These are good observations.
Well, what it says is one of the things that we could do is, with a fairly modest amount of engineering money, somebody go out there and find the catch basins that are too high, find the catch basins that need to have a somewhat different structure to maybe stay cleaner.
But I think Lynn points something out, and why has the group been so successful on the Charles River? And that's because they have so many people and they act together and they are a force. I mean, if we were to be more, have a larger group and more person activity promoting these goals, we make more headway with it. So it's important to get our neighbors and I'm sorry.
What, no, go ahead, I'm saying,
No, but it's important to get our neighbors and people activated enough to get together and follow through on Lynn's ideas, for example, because numbers count. That's really.
I'll tell you how much numbers count. 2 weeks ago, I was in Lennox, And I visited with a couple of board members of the Stockbridge Bowl Association through a contact with Matt Gardner. And this is a 375 acre lake, and it's got plants all over it, and they raised 1.2 million bucks, 300,000 of it from a lake association, some from CPA funds, some from town monies, to build a pipe connecting two parts of this pond that had gotten filled in, so they could do a drawdown every year to lower the level by 2 feet, and they're hoping that that'll take care of some of the milfoil. Then they have another $3 million of dredging planned. And they asked me there because they wanted to know if I thought that would take care of it, and I said no. But my point is, this is a homeowners association, $300,000 to fix a 300-acre lake.
But I think what you're saying, Carol, is that a smaller group is help, I mean, we want more people, but people like to get behind what they can understand.
Yes.
So like in the Wayland thing, we were all at town meeting, Mike clearly explained what was going to happen at the Wayland Town Beach. People who used the Wayland Town Beach could see how every year the sand would have a big cut through it because the water would just take the sand and the runoff was just cutting big crevasses into the area on the beach. So there was kind of then it got voted yes. We would vote yes to add $30,000 so that this could be done, and then it got done. So I think with what isn't right, or if things, identifying catch basins that don't work, looking at the MAPC report as sort of the smaller groups of people, and like DCR and everyone who can say, in the town say, here, and maybe like the plan already says, here are the spots that have to be fixed. And then we're very clear to the people that we're bringing in, here's what we're having you come in to help with. We want you to push the town, we want you to come to the meeting to say, this has to be done, this particular basin or that one.
You know?
'Cause it's too big of an
Prioritization is
issue for
important.
people.
One of the real tough parts about all this, is Pat mentioned it earlier, people see milfoil, so they think something needs to be done about milfoil. People don't see dissolved phosphorus. People don't see what's going on between the streets and the lakes. So any way we can put that in front of them visually or experientially to help people understand what's happening, that's the only way we're gonna motivate people to do something about it. And maybe adopting catch basins, something like that. Figure out where the watershed is for this catch basin, things like that.
I always thought a great photograph would be, you know, the huge pipe when you come on, I don't know how many people go under Route 9 Bridge on the lake. As soon as you go under, going south on the right is a big, huge pipe, big enough for a small child to literally walk into. Is a photograph of that pipe with the water coming out of it with a child standing there, a small child. Because that is it, right? It's coming right in off of Route 9. And there's nothing between Route 9 and that.
Finding ways to make that real is really important.
Yeah, I just want to put up, you know, the sort of the question on the list of how do we engage more abutters, which is what Carol was talking about. And you know, and Mike, you just mentioned the Shoreline Association, right? Well, this is the interesting quandary that we're in. We have a group of people who live on the lake, including their neighbors. We all use the lake, we love the lake, but we're not owners of it. But we need to think like we are. How do we engage the abutters to take care of what we love? Exactly. I mean, to me, this is the ongoing challenge. I don't know what the answer is, and we need to just keep strategizing about how to engage more people, because the numbers do really help and matter, right? If we have bigger numbers, then we can like pick a certain thing to do, and then a certain group of that, a certain bunch is going to latch on. Okay, we'll focus on this. But
anybody wants to talk
when you're
more
10,
stuff
when you're
in the
10
hopper,
people, yeah.
send it by email to Carol or Pat or me, We'll put our
When
emails
you
up
think you
here,
own it, you work
and
it.
we can bring it up and talk about it.
Make
Should
my
be
card.
Right now, it's 5 minutes of 8, as I promised you, we're moving on.
I let the people up
What
on the
can
avenue
you
come down
do?
to my house to live.
Please read
You own
this.
it.
This is, I read it again tonight, and this is one of the best brochures like this that I've ever seen. And it's particular to our lake, that's what makes it so good.
Well, you can take some home and put them, give them to your neighbors to, you
Yeah.
know,
Well, this one,
to look at too, because we have plenty of those, and we're happy to give them to you.
Is it available digitally online?
Yes, I don't know.
There's also a big watershed map on the back of this, and it'd be really apparent where the water comes from that goes into this lake.
It's very different.
Remember,
I live on both.
when you're driving
I
along,
live on the north corner,
everything you see
and it,
around in that watershed area
but I don't.
is heading for the lake. What can we all do together? We ask that you join the Watershed Council, help us advocate, help us run the abutter program, help us gain those people that we need to have more arms, join, lead cleanups, educate your neighbors, adopt your local storm drains, and save us 44 cents and give us your emails, so we won't have to send you things by post office. Oops, wrong here.
Going.
There are some resources that I printed here, and if anybody wants these things, I can rip this page out. We're gonna post this publication on our site, but the links are here too. We've got a calendar that tells what's happening when, the plans, the trail things, cleanups that Pat does, things like this. We're gonna try to do a better job of keeping everybody up to date using that calendar. This is a Google Calendar, you can subscribe to it. You subscribe to it, and the stuff shows up in your own calendar, it's great. DCR's got a wonderful guide for lakes and ponds. This is a general guide about lakes and ponds aimed at people who live around them. I recommend it. You can get printed copies from the DCR, but this is a PDF, and you can just download it and look at it. When you're really hungry, and it's raining and there's no ball game, take a look at this, excuse me, 2004. That's the wrong one to write a board with. 2004 MAPC report. If you want to find it, go to mapc.org, the search bar, Lake Cochituate. It'll take you right to it. The DCR's got a whole page about the Lakes and Ponds program. That's the program that supports our lake, and an index of various other documents that are helpful. So there are some of the resources that you can expand your knowledge a little bit. We promised you we'd leave at 8, it's 8. Thank you, everybody.